We're going to be talking today about how do you know that you're bad with money? Well, how would I know that? Well, I'm a financial expert. I've been in the finance industry for nearly 30 years. At some point I was young, but now I've got no hair, so I'm definitely older than I was then. I've got a number of different clients, and there are certain tell signs that you can see, that you feel when you talk to them, that they aren't necessarily dealing with all of the things that they think they are dealing with. The first thing they tend to do is this. But what does that mean? They stick their head in the sand. All that happens is envelopes arrive on their desk, they arrive at their home, and they're not opened. But by not opening the piece of paper, they aren't confronting the problem, and they're just letting the problem grow. When does the problem then get dealt with? Well, one of two ways. Generally, somebody will turn around to them and say, look, you're sticking your head in the sand and going blah, 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 blah. Or secondly, they get a knock on the door. And that knock on the door can be from a bailiff. It could be from somebody from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. It could be anybody. But what they are there to do is to turn around and say, you've not paid your debt. And now we're going to force you into dealing with that problem and confronting that problem when they might not have the resource to do so. The point of it is you've got to be able to confront the problem. And by not confronting the problem, all you're doing is deferring it to a later day. And what does that mean? You're not great with money. And then you've got to then move on and try and work really hard to get better at it. And it's a really long process. But what are the other signs that you could think about, or have I seen, that people aren't great with money? What about outgoings? Somebody rings you up and says, do you know what? Let's go and watch the football, or let's go to the cinema, let's go for a meal. And somebody says, look, it's going to cost you 40 quid. And the first thing that you say is, I don't know if I can afford it. Well, the reason that you don't know is, firstly, probably you don't know what's in your bank account. If you've got savings, you don't know what's in your savings account. You don't know what your outgoings are for the rest of the month. Now, that's all kind of little incidental things that when you roll them all together, suddenly becomes this big problem. If you knew what was in your bank account, you'd be able to go, okay, I've got 100 quid in my bank account. If I get paid tomorrow, oh look, that's fine, I can go out tonight, 40 quid. Not a problem at all. As long as you know what your outgoings are for the rest of the month. Because it might be you've saved that £100 because you got your best friend's birthday next week. That's why you saved it. You've now spent the money twice. But having spent the money twice, how are you going to get one of them back? You're going to have to wait until the end of the following month to do that? Are you going to cut something else out that you're already committed to spending? If you know what your outgoings are, if you know what your bank balance is at any one time, you're able to make commitments to people. You're able to go and enjoy things. If you save money, then that means you're going to be able to do things in the future. If you don't know what your outgoings are, adds to pressure. Before you know it, everything falls apart, and it's a massive problem. Next year, you meet the lady, the man of your dreams. A year later, you decide to move in together, and you go to get a mortgage. You've not shared this secret back here that said that you were bankrupt or something happened. And suddenly, you go, going to get a mortgage, and the first thing the mortgage company say is, oh, he had been declared bankrupt or had a CCJ or anything like that. There's something I've got to tell you. Now, those conversations, generally speaking, don't go well because it's something that you've not wanted to share that was important to not only your relationship, but about the trust that you have with another person. And suddenly, the money problem and what happened previously is the least of your worries. Well, one of the things that we're not great at doing, and people that are bad with money are really not good at doing, is talking about money. They don't like talking about that. You're not going to go down to the pub, are you? See your friend and go, do you know what? I want to talk to you about money. Because they're going to go, I don't think I do. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to have a drink and we're going to have a discussion and we'll be fine. We're not going to talk about money. Money's one of those things that is talked about behind closed doors. It's talked about when the worst things happen. That's a really bad thing. It's because ultimately talking about a problem or talking about something, a problem shared is a problem halved. And it definitely is, because you get people helping you. Have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing that? But by not having that discussion, by not having those thoughts, it makes it really difficult to move forward. So if you don't talk about it, you can't educate about it. Why is education important? Well, because we get told education is important, don't we? Hopefully, some of those things that you've learned about is about money. Because ultimately, that's a life lesson. And if you've not been taught about that, and you've not thought about that, well, there's a good time to learn about it, and that's when you're at school. Because ultimately, When you go home, you haven't got to worry about money. Or have you? Or is actually that the time to think about it? Is that the time to think about, do you know what? I've got to understand a payslip. Payslip? It's a piece of paper, isn't it? It comes up on this electronic thing and I get paid it. But what happens if they deduct tax from you? No, I got this free allowance that somebody told me I got. Oh, I know who it was. Rishi. That's it. Treasurer bloke. Chancellor. He's quite important, he is. He told me that I got some free money and that's what I did. And before you know it, they've deducted £1,000 from you. And you don't know why. But ultimately, do you care? Because you've got the money that you've had to live off. You should care about it at that point because they might not have needed to deduct £1,000 worth of tax from you. So you might have just paid £1,000 in tax to somebody that you didn't need to. And why did you do that? Well, because you didn't understand or you weren't sure what that tax was and how it was deducted and why it was on your payslip. And why do I need to know that? And can I work out what I should be receiving? But why don't you learn about that? Why not subscribe to our video and learn about how to read a payslip, how to look at what a tax return is, how to look at what national insurance is. What's national insurance? Is that important? Yeah, it's really important because that's about a basic state pension. And you'll be worried about that in, 40 years' time. But 40 years is a long time. It is, until you get to year 39, and then it's not a long time at all. And then that's a problem. But if you learn about that to begin with, then it helps you to deal with those sorts of things as you're going on through your life. If you haven't got the education or you're not sure what it is, you can't question it. You just go, that's what my payroll department told me it was. But did your payroll department go, oh yeah, but you didn't have a company car this month, so we've taxed you as if you've got a company car? Yeah, but you shouldn't have done that. Oh, it will sort itself out, won't it? It will sort itself out if somebody does something about it. If you sort it out, you're going to be dealing with it yourself. You're dealing with your money. And that's really important. That doesn't mean you're bad with money. That means you understand what the problem is and you're doing something about it. When things spiral out of control, then things start becoming much harder to deal with and you're not sure then what to do. So how do I know people are bad with money? Well, it's sticking your head in the sand, and if all you think about is then that's got to be a good thing. Because all you're going to do is visualise that if you're not opening bits of paper. Education, we've all got to learn from it. That stuff about finance, you will really use. And you'll use it right the way through your life. So being educated about money is not something just for today. It's not just for tomorrow. It's for the whole of your life. Please subscribe, follow, leave me a comment, and I'll get back to you.